Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the lives of consumers and businesses alike. And with this major change and a new normal comes a new way to market to customers. A recent study indicates that 62% of small businesses say they have experienced a decrease in revenue since the start of COVID-19. To deal with this change in cash flow, one may need to change up other processes for the time being, such as marketing strategies. Well, joining us now to discuss a thriving SME brand amidst COVID-19 is Moremi Elekwachi, a public relations expert. Good morning, Moremi. Thank you for joining us this Sunday morning on the morning show. Now, I am an SME, I'm an entrepreneur. I have my small business that I do apart from being on the morning show on Arise News. However, COVID-19 came and just put the entire world to a standstill. A lot of businesses lost so much money. A lot of businesses were put to the test. How do we even begin to wrap our heads around this? Imagine you were having one of your power sessions and you were giving me advice. What's the first thing you would say to a business owner trying to thrive during this pandemic?
To every business owner right now who is trying to thrive during the pandemic is that you need to take into account, first of all, that your target audience's needs have changed tremendously. So what you need to do, first of all, is conduct a little bit of market research. Find out the needs that your customers have now in the current climate. For instance, I'll give you a good example. So there used to be there was a fashion designer who approached us, and her discipline was kind of just sewing clothes or making clothes for menswear, so Ankara menswear. But obviously, because of the pandemic, not a lot of people were going to events. You know what I mean? So she came to us saying, business has dropped. What should she do? So the first thing we told her was to do market research. Call up your customers, conduct an online survey, find out what they need at this time. So what she discovered actually was that her customers wanted pajamas and stay-at-home wear, and we advised her to talk to not just men, but women, find out what they want. So she found out that people wanted sleepwear. They wanted to still look good at home, on social media and Instagram, but they wanted something comfortable, So she asked her customers, and that's what they told her. And she started making products, to cater to those needs. And right now, her SME her business is thriving. So it just goes to show the power of market research. You need to find out what your customers want at this time, because what they wanted before the pandemic is different from what they want now.
I'd like to think, though, that spending habits won't be too heavily impacted by the pandemic, because ultimately, regardless of what you sell or what service you provide, as a small or medium enterprise, you are very much dependent on your consumers' disposable income. And naturally, as a result of the pandemic, not everybody has been able to maintain the same amount of disposable income that they've had. So for situations like this, even if my wants have skewed a little bit from wanting indoor clothes as opposed to outdoor clothes, what happens for businesses if their consumers just can't afford to pay for anything? It does feel as though everybody is feeling the pinch at this time.
Yeah, so that's a very good point that you've mentioned. So, like I mentioned before, you need to put your consumer front and center, find out what they need. Even if it doesn't mean that you're going to diversify, find out how the products and services that you currently offer can actually meet the needs of people right now. So for instance, you mentioned people's disposable income may have decreased. So you could do discounted products or services for a certain amount of time, So it just goes back to that, putting your customer front and center and practicing empathy. So everyone's spending power has decreased. You could do percentages off for a limited time. You could do giveaways maybe for your old stock, if that applies to your business. You could do referral programs, refer a friend or two, and in exchange get a discount for X amount for a particular amount of time. Those kinds of little strategies just show that you have your consumer in mind, and it shows that, you understand the current economic climate and you're trying to use your business and your service to actually cater to those needs. So there's so much that you can do.
Yes. Moremi, I'm here taking notes like you have no idea. You're giving me so many ideas this morning. But you know what? You mentioned something. You said something about doing a market research where this person had to place calls to, her customers to find out what it is that they want exactly. And what comes to mind is how realistic is this? Because I'm thinking as myself, as a customer, I don't know how, perceptive Nigerians are to kind of doing these surveys. I know that most times when I even send surveys that people can easily do on their phones, it takes a very long time. Or when I receive any phone call from a customer service, I'm usually in a hurry to get off the phone. So how does that work? Do you think an individual can handle that, or they have to come to you to be able to handle it professionally? So that's one part of my question. The second part is about social media. You said something about giveaways. I want us to digress more into that, because we do know that in this time of the pandemic, social media has really gone front and center. So what are the best ways to maximize social media? They're talking Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the likes, to push your business forward.
Okay, awesome. So I will take the first question first, where you talked about, market research and phone surveys and how to conduct it. So at Euphoric PR, we actually offer those services as far as market research, phone surveys, online surveys, focus groups, all that sort of thing. So we offer that. But, obviously some business owners or some businesses may not be able to kind of put money towards that right now. So what we often advise is, if you feel like within your organization you can actually do that yourself, then that's really, really realistic, and it can be done. Because what I find is that a lot of MSME owners, so that's micro, small, and medium business owners, they actually have closer relationships with customers. It's not like they're big corporations where there are like so many bottlenecks and they never actually get to hear directly from their target audience or their customers. You know what I mean? So a lot of times they already have somewhat close relationships with customers. So it doesn't really cost them anything to pick up the phone and say, hey, whoever, I know this is a rough time. Let me know how I can best how we can best satisfy your needs at these, uncertain times. A lot of customers will be receptive. So it all depends on your approach. You don't just, I understand the kind of calls that you get, because I get a lot of them a lot of the time. It's so impersonal. Hello, please, I'm calling from so we have this.
Subscription is about to end. Are you going to? Are you
No.
going to?
That is the wrong approach. You need to, business owners need to take into account that they're talking to fellow human beings. These are not machines. So they have to put themselves in their customers' shoes. How would you want someone to talk to you first thing in the morning? You don't want a sales call. Hello, how are you? Is this a good time? My name is so and so from X. Can you talk now? Or is there a better time that I can call you back? You know what I mean? So showing that empathy first. There's no one that will shut you up. They might tell you, oh, this isn't a good time. Can we talk later? So it all depends on the approach that you use, right? So that's the response to your first question. So regarding social media, wow, now more than ever during this pandemic, it has shown us that we are actually a borderless world. I often tell clients, don't look at yourself as catering to just the Nigerian market or the Lagos market or the Ghanaian market. The whole world is your customer. And social media has made it so awesome and so possible for everyone to connect to customers. So there's so many strategies that you can use to actually, gain visibility for your brand. So there's so many. So I'll talk about the first one. So the first one that I actually would like to recommend is the use of nano influencers to actually promote your goods and services on social media. So nano influencers are individuals that have followers from maybe like 900 to 10,000. They're regular individuals just like you and me. So this is the time to actually forge partnerships with such people, get them in your corner, strike some lucrative partnerships with them, whereby they can promote your goods and services in exchange for maybe products or services, or some actual financial compensation. So what happens with this group of people on social media is that they're not really that used to getting approached by brands. One, two, they're seen as more authentic by their followers just because they're not celebrities or they're not public figures. They're regular people. So the belief is that if X person can actually recommend like some goods or services to me, then it's actually true. It's actually real. It actually works, and I should get on board. And research has shown that engagement on the accounts of nano influencers is actually higher than, engagement on the mega influencers, and you can save money. So suppose you have a $1 million budget to promote your goods and services. Normally for the big influencers, you could actually use that money to just pay maybe one person or two people. But how nice would it be to pay maybe even like 50 people, 20 people, 100 people? So you spread your cost along, around like different followers different influencers, nano influencers who have a diverse array of followers. So that is what the trend is going towards now in terms of social media marketing. And I would really advise MSN owners to take advantage of that. So that's just one of the strategies. I could go on and on, but I know we have limited time. But
you've done a great job, Moremi. It's been so informative. I mean, even for me, who has no interest and no type of connection to business, what you've said makes so much sense. Valuing smaller nano influencers over major ones, because on the one hand, while they might be cheaper, more cost effective, they also have a more organic relationship with their followers. So you've been dropping real gems. I wanted to ask you, though, about how when you're talking about business, especially entrepreneurship, a lot of the feeling there talks about independence. Well, this is my business. I built it up from the ground. But ultimately, in order to become successful, you do need synergy and an environment that is conducive to your growth. So I wanted to ask you about government intervention. As it stands, do you think that the current policies in place, for example, here in Lagos or in Nigeria as a whole, are supporting small and medium enterprises enough?
Okay, well, what I would say is that in every economy around the world, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's the United States or the UK, wherever you are, there are policies that have been put in place to kind of like ease the burden of pandemic on individuals and businesses. But obviously, there's always room for improvement everywhere. So we're talking about Nigeria right now, Lagos and all that. Yes, there have been some measures put in place, and I've heard from people who've said, "Oh, we applied for an X loan, and we're actually getting some support from the business." But of course, it can be better. I feel like the efforts the government is making are commendable so far, but there's always room for improvement. And I feel like from what I've heard, I may be wrong, but a lot of the people I've heard from who have gotten aid are kind of like in like agriculture or manufacturing, stuff like that. So I would just plead with the government to kind of expand its reach for support, so that it can cover other kinds of businesses. Yes, agriculture is important. Yes, manufacturing is important, but there are other fields that really do need this help. So I would say, they're doing great work, but there's room for improvement.
We are still joined by Moremi, who is she is an extraordinaire when it comes to small to medium enterprise businesses. She's also the founder of Euphoric, which itself is something that we'd like to know more about. So if you could tell us about the story of your brand itself and how it's grown over time.
Yeah, so I'm the principal consultant and founder at Euphoric PR, and Euphoric PR is a brand communications agency. So we help SMEs, corporates, and public figures effectively communicate their brands to their target audiences so that they can increase visibility, sales, and any other objectives that they have for their businesses. So Euphoric PR first started out actually as a social media marketing agency primarily. about 4.5 years ago. But over time, it blossomed and grew into, catering to other segments in the communications industry, such as public relations, digital marketing, branding, and everything. So when you think communications for your business, visibility, and sales, think Euphoric PR. We can help you get to where you want to go.
Definitely, I agree. I mean, I'm just going to say this. I'm definitely giving you a call once this interview is over. But let's talk about the role of brand communications, because a lot of people, don't necessarily understand what it means and why it's important to why branding itself is important. So let's quickly touch on that. Brand communications in making sure that SMEs do thrive.
Yeah, so brand communications and the field of branding is actually very broad. And, a lot of times when people talk about branding, they only talk about like the logo designs or your brand color or rebranding your visual image. And branding, in fact, that is just, I would say, 0.5% of branding, actually. So branding starts by identifying and understanding the culture in which your business operates. So, brand communications is about understanding the culture and molding your communication strategy to cater to that culture. I'll give you a good example. So we once worked with a human hair brand, human hair brand owner, and her sales were kind of like stagnant for a while. And the first thing I told her was, it's because you have a limited perspective of what your brand is. You're not just a human hair seller. You're into the culture of beauty. You know what I mean? You're tapping into the culture of beauty. So when you start understanding your brand from the perception of culture, it makes you get more open-minded to what your target audiences need. So what we told her is, okay, the human hair industry right now is a bit slow because of the pandemic. No one is shelling out 250,000 naira really for hair or 200K, but you're in the culture of beauty. What are other things within the beauty industry that you can do to cater to that culture, that group of women who care about their appearance? What else can you do right now? So, we brainstormed, she did some market research, and, right now she's delving into like lashes, which are less expensive, but, we're focusing on bulk sales as opposed to, getting one person to spend like 200K or 150K. So lashes, makeup, skincare, all those kinds of things. So she's starting to diversify bit by bit into other sectors of beauty, because ultimately she's catering to a tribe of women who believe a lot in the culture of beauty. So that is just an example of what a brand is. A brand is culture. It's not just a product or service. And if you do not understand your business in the, as being a culture, then you actually need to call us so that we can help you define that.
All right, then. So let's very quickly, because we're wrapping up soon, if you could give advice to any young entrepreneur looking at this that has already started a business or is looking to start a business, what would you say to them?
So the first thing that I would say to every young person who has just started business or is wanting to start a business is, don't go into it because you're looking for something where you can make money. You need to start by identifying a problem that people have and having your services or products actually cater to those problems. You have to look at yourself as a problem solver. What problems can I see around me that people need help with in different sectors? It could be in beauty, it could be in finance, it could be in the weddings industry. Where is there a gap in the market? And is this gap really a pain point for the public? And how can myself or my business, how can I meet people at their point of need to fulfill those needs? I tell you, when you do that, if that is the first thing that you do, the money will come. The money will eventually come, because what I see happens is, the entrepreneur culture is trending now. Everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to be their own boss. Look, it's not as glamorous as it sounds. And if you do not have passion for what you're doing, you can burn out. If you do not have passion for what you're doing, when times get rough, you're going to give up. And then you're on to the next business idea and the next and the next. And that will just make your business stagnant. So identify your passion, find out how whatever service or product that you are bringing to the table can actually solve problems. When you do that first, everything else will fall into place.
And that's somewhat period.
That's on period.
That's on period. We have definitely enjoyed this. I think we have time for a very quick question. I wanted to also, I guess this is just the business in me in terms of business and finance and economics. But if we were to talk about the constraint for financing for many SMEs, would you identify that as one of the biggest hurdles in success or reaching success as a small to medium enterprise?
I would actually say that it is a key problem. Financing, those business ideas. I think that, the financial industry in Nigeria and the government needs to do better in that regard because, oftentimes I listen to Guy Raz, he has a podcast on NPR, and you hear like entrepreneurs talking about, oh, when I started out my business, I didn't have any money, but there was this government grant that I got from the government. They were trying to, build the tech industry at that time. So I applied for a grant, I got it, or there were some like venture capitalists, within the government sector who, I pitched to and then I got funding, so I feel like, our financial industries and the government in Nigeria, we need to do more to actually, help SMEs. And, we need to do more to inspire people to execute those ideas because it's not easy. It's not easy doing business in Nigeria. So I would really like to see like an improvement in that regard in Nigeria.
All right, then, Moremi, I want to quickly flip the conversation. I mean, we have spoken about SMEs at length, but I'm curious to know what your background is. How did you get into this? Because there are people who are probably looking at you and want to become brand strategists themselves. So what's the best way to get into this field?
Okay, so I started out my career in journalism. So I actually have a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Georgia. I've always loved the idea of telling stories, about people and entities who are impacting the world in positive ways. So my passion first started with storytelling. In secondary school, I used to be the one that they would call out, in the assembly to read the newspapers for the day. I used to tell my classmates lots of stories. So storytelling was something that I grew up loving, And when it came time to go to college, I chose journalism because I saw it as a way to tell stories. And then during the course of like studying journalism, working for a few newspapers in the United States and all that, I started to want to tell stories in a bigger way. And so I opted to get my master's degree in marketing communications from the University of Southern California. So it first started out with that passion and being fascinated with how, different audiences respond to campaigns and stories like that.
It breaks my heart to have to interrupt you. We've enjoyed all 30 minutes of this interview. Thank you so much for joining us. That was brand strategist Moremi Elekwachi.